Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Maynard Webb. Maynard, welcome to today's show.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Maynard, for the listeners, can you give the kind of the history of bringing us up to date with your career? Maybe starting after graduating from college and
I've had an interesting career, and nobody should try to follow what I have done. I majored in criminal justice in college and was going to go on to law school and got hired by IBM my senior year as a co op student as a security guard. And then I was hired permanently by them and shipped from Florida to Minnesota. And that's where I started. IBM was a great place, and um, I was very ambitious, and they kept letting me do more things. And so I quickly got promoted to supervisor, and then I was able to take some programming classes and went back to school for programming and did a number of things in security around that, eventually becoming, in a few years, um, a hacker. So I got to go all over the country and break systems for IBM, and that was quite fun. And then I've spent the rest of my career trying to fix things, which isn't nearly as much fun as breaking things, but still fun.
so along the way you were involved in starting some company as a founder or early investor. What prompted you to go that direction
Oh
versus
well, I spent most of my time as building companies, and I was um, a CIO for a number of years at places like Bay Networks and Quantum and Gateway, and then became the COO, the head of technology at eBay when they couldn't keep their site up. Um, but throughout all those jobs, I got asked by friends to invest in their companies. And so that was a lot of fun. And I got asked by VCs to sit on boards of some of their high growth companies. And then as I stopped operating after live ops, I decided I promised my wife I wouldn't run companies anymore. I decided to do this web investment network that I'm doing now, and it's been a blast. And so off we went.
You're very unique in that of critical thinking and helping the problem solve. I want to delve a little bit into this area, and Maynard asked when you had your first opportunity to serve on a board for a company.
Right.
First of all, which company was
It
it?
was a company called Niku,
Niku.
and I
Okay.
was a friend of mine told me that I introduced the opportunity to me, and it was a great company. Eventually went public in back in the day, and then sold to IBM. It was a 2000 era company. It was
Mm-hmm.
founded in 1997.
Yeah.
Went out with lots of burn,
Mm-hmm.
but a high valuation, and then uh, got pummeled a little bit in the meltdown, and then eventually sold to IBM.
You have a gift in helping companies with strategy.
Maybe I think I have a I like. I think I like to help people achieve their potential and
Mm-hmm.
companies, and I think I'm known not only for the strategy as much as the heavy lifting of actually fixing things and making things work and scaling. I'm probably even better known for than strategy.
And if you served on a couple public company boards,
Oh, I think I've
more than
served
a
on,
few.
yeah, quite a few. Currently, I was the chairman of Yahoo as they went into the sale to Verizon for 5 years. I'm on the board of Visa and Salesforce right now, and I'm also on the board of a company that I helped create called Everwise. Um, but I've also been on a bunch of other public company boards and learned a lot. And the boards have changed a lot, what's required today versus what we did back in my early board career.
It's been interesting watching the web and the technology as it evolves like a flowing river that it requires us to constantly change and adapt.
Absolutely.
To your tribute, you've done quite well in staying
I,
up to space.
I had a lot of people willing to invest in me and help me, And, I knocked on a lot of doors and asked for opportunities. And then I went out and tried my best to not screw them up.
So you wrote a book, Dear
Yep,
Founder, and I need to take a quick break. But when we get back, I want to talk about the inspiration for this book
absolutely.
and what individuals can learn through its
Um,
pages.
Happy to.
Visiting here today with Maynard Webb, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Grandpa, can we do chemistry? Papa, Daddy. Grandpa, let's do something fun.
We'll help you stay organized so you can focus on what really matters in life. Give us a call today and see how we can help you start saving taxes. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Maynard Webb. And Maynard, in the last segment, we ended off by saying we're going to talk about your new book, Dear Founder. It's about letters of advice for anyone who wants to lead, manage, or start a business. Can you give us some of what inspired you to write this book?
Well, at the Web Investment Network, we're always trying to figure out how to codify some of the advice that's given. And my son actually saw an article on Medium about a father who was dying and left him a bunch of letters for him to read at every stage of his life. The first one was, when your mom starts to drive you crazy, and you open it, it says, remember, she's hurting too.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're getting married, when you have children, and the last one is when you're about to die, and you open it up and it says, I hope you're old, and then I'll see you soon. And I looked at that, and we think about the life cycle of companies from birth. An idea is easy, but getting it to relevance is hard. Getting it to scale is even harder, and having it be a legacy company even harder. I said, this would be perfect. Why don't we go start writing letters at each stage of a company's growth? And so we did, and that was inspired us to do that. We first created a book just for our network, and it had about 32 letters. My son self-published it, little blue book that we gave to the network. There were only 300 of them, so it drove me crazy because people would be like, can I have a book? And I'm like, I'm not allowed to give any out. There's only so many. And then people from the network said, this is really good. You should do more of these. So we found a publisher who's amazing, St. Martin's Press, and we wrote a bunch more. And now we have 80 letters, and it's a real book for the world.
You talk in the book about the importance of developing a relationship and finding a mentor. What advice would you have for an individual searching for a mentor in their life?
I think you should first realize you can learn from all kinds of sources. So Stephen Covey helped me in my career, and I never met Stephen, but I certainly read his books, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was transformational for me. So don't be like, just, are you my mentor? Are you my search? Be constantly seeking to learn, to grow, to ask questions. And so finding people that are going to help you, and people love to help you way more than you might think, as long as, they think that it's going to pay off for you if they do. So you'll find mentorship in unbelievable places. You just have to be open to it.
Why is it important for individuals to find to build diverse and inclusive companies where they can thrive?
Well, the first reason is, frankly, the population is broad, and if you're missing half the population, that's probably not a great place to ensure that you're getting the best talent that's there. And I think we more than ever know that we have to let everybody belong, and we have to treat people fairly and equitably. And the faster you can fix this or try to address it in your company, the better it is. So if you wait till you're 50 people before you add your first woman or minority, it's much harder to actually have that be a natural flow, when you develop cultural things that may not be beneficial if you do that.
Maynard, we're running up against the break, and when we get back, I want to delve further into how Silicon Valley has transformed to what it is today and what you see for the future.
Awesome.
Visiting here today with Maynard Webb, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Grandpa, we found the golden stone.
We have to watch out for the treasure guardian.
Oh no, the treasure guardians!
Since you can't take your wealth with you, spend time with your family. Groco, servicing family office needs since 1964.
Welcome back. I've been visiting here today with Maynard Webb. We've been talking about his new book, Dear Founder, and it's letters of advice for anyone who leads, manages, or wants to start a business. And Maynard, in the first segment, we talked about the importance of a mentor. I'd like to roll forward, though, to how Silicon Valley has evolved to what it is today. And, given the current state where we're at and where you see the future going, how individuals that are in the business world should be seeking for counseling and advice to help them.
I joined Silicon Valley in 1991 when I became the head of networking at a disk drive company called Quantum. And I had read about all the magic here, and I'd been in technology companies all my life. But it was just amazing to find how close and closely connected everybody was when you talk about mentoring. And somebody is always able to introduce you to somebody else. And as a head of technology, I would call on the VCs often to try to make sure that I knew some of what their latest technologies were. And they were thrilled to have somebody that could be a potential buyer of those technologies. So there's synergy that works everywhere you go in Silicon Valley, and that continues to be true. There's way more money today than there ever was back in the day. There were angels, but there weren't things like you could classify what I do maybe as a super angel, but there's lots of regular angels, there's super angels, and then at the end there's all the VCs. And then at the upper end of the market, you have folks like SoftBank doing $100 billion funds and companies taking longer to get out. But it's hard, it's way easier to start a company today because you don't have to invest as much, and you can do things like use Salesforce or Amazon or Google to get your platform moving, from the beginning. So that's easy, but it's really way harder to actually strike magic than it used to be. And it's, there's a lot more failures, not than there were back, but it's way harder to have those ideas actually get all the way to scale and become public than it used to. And I just think in general, running a company, whether I've helped create companies from scratch, and I've been in big public companies. It's harder today than it ever was because you're on point all the time, and you've got lots of constituents that want a lot of things from you: your employees, your shareholders, your customers, society. Look how people are responding to some of the tech stuff going on in Washington today. So it's a multifaceted prospect, and there's no downtime. You're on 24/7, and tweets that we didn't have tweets, so you could maybe tell a joke sometime back in the past and not get get in a lot of trouble. Today, that you got to be careful with everything you say.
Taking on the transparency element with the information of technology. I remember a few years back when Steve Jobs would do an announcement for Apple, and then he would roll out the product in the next line.
Yep.
It seems that with information age technology and convenience, it's a little harder for companies to be that stealth today. Would you agree?
Well, I think several companies all try to be stealth and roll out things with a big bang. I mean, he was an amazing showman, and he knew how to do that. I'd say I serve on a board with a guy who's amazing at celebration, which is Mark Benioff, and we have our big show Dreamforce, which has a lot of hoopla and attendance in there, and we sell out. Everybody mobs San Francisco for the week, and all the hotel rooms are gone. So I think there's still some of that there, but I just think there's nowhere. If you can't take days to go address something that starts to go south. Do you remember when Intel had their Pentium chip problem, and it took them a while to admit that there was an issue? Well, today that would blow up and be all over the place in 5 minutes. When I was at eBay, when the Twin Towers went down, we got called and we had to have a policy statement within 3 minutes after the bombing, because people were taking debris from the towers and trying to sell it on eBay. And thank God we already had our policies in place, which is we don't profit from disaster, so take those down. And, but that's the speed at which things happen today, really, really quickly.
When we look at the business world today, and there's individuals that will lead through inspiration and others will lead through fear, how does a person reach becoming inspiring and helping others to become part of their vision?
Well, I think we used to live in a more command and control world, to be honest with you, and we admired hierarchy, and anybody that was at the top of the hierarchy got to say whatever they wanted and behave. Hopefully they still behaved in a good manner, and many of them were inspirational. But all of that, I think today's employee wants to be inspired and guided, and they have more power today than they ever had. It's not tops down. People are very, very talented. People can get multiple jobs any place. You don't have jobs for life anymore, and you have people trying to, take your talent and hire it away. And so it's that pendulum of power has shifted a lot. And the more you can create a place where people can learn and grow and reach their potential, the longer people will stay with you. So I think you have to do a lot to transition to not I'm the boss and you have to do what I say, to, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's why it makes sense. Here's how it's going to transform you, and you'll be better for this, and have it become your idea that you want to do this.
That area of communication, we live in a world where tweeting can immediately hit the
Go
mass
viral.
media.
It goes everywhere.
Yeah. So how should leaders give advice, given the world that we live in with things?
I think you need to be authentic, and you need to not be about you. You need to make it all about the person you're trying to help. And I think too often we're all involved in our lives so much. It's what do we want and what do we do? And then when you're able to actually channel what somebody really needs, and you can genuinely help them, you can make a big difference. And I think we need to take the time to do that and be human. We can never lose the magic that comes from being human and authentic. And I used to talk about at eBay that its integrity really matters, and that at the end of my career, 20 years after I was done, if I were sitting on a park bench, would people come over and give me a hug, or would they walk away? And intuitively how you feel about somebody when you see them, whether you'd go see them on the park bench or whether you'd walk away. So every day we have to do more to have integrity and serve on that park bench.
Maynard, I want to go further on leaders managing their egos and their own shortcomings. What advice do you have?
Well, first of all, I think to become a leader, you have to have a little bit of ego. So like early in your career, nobody thinks you can do anything. And so you have to believe in yourself and prove that you can do things. And then people then start believing in you more maybe than they should. And you have to get a little more humble and self-aware and make sure that, your press clippings aren't what you're reading, and that you go do what you need to do. But I think when you're running an organization, you have to be harder on yourself than anybody else can be because they think of you as a boss and a leader. And you have to know what they're thinking of you. What does your boss think of you, your board? What do your employees think of you? You can look everything up on Glassdoor today. That didn't used to exist. And what are you doing to make yourself all you can be? And are you continuing to learn and to grow? For me in my life, what I've learned every time I think I did something and climbed a hill, I realized there's a whole set of mountains behind it. And oh my gosh, it's way more complicated than what I thought it was. And I've got a lot more to learn. And I think we do best when we continue to learn and grow and try to stay humble, get excited and celebratory about what you have accomplished. That's great, but that's history. What are you doing to get voted onto the team the next day?
You know, Maynard, it's in the onset of Dear Founder, you talked about life cycles of we're all going through our own life cycle,
Yep.
and companies have their life cycles. But what advice would you give to a person about their legacy?
I think you have to be clear. My first book, Rebooting Work, I talked about standing on a stage with the people you most admire and telling them honestly what you've done the last 5 years. And that people will either be amazed or they'll be, you're talented, that's what you should do, or they'll be unimpressed. And I think too many of us don't actually stay in touch with what you really want to achieve in life. Life is short, goes fast, and the more focused you can be on what you really want your legacy to be, I think the more powerful it will be for all of us.
And so, in terms of when you are looking at your legacy, how do you want people to remember you?
That I helped them achieve more than they ever thought they could achieve, that I was a winner, that I gave back, and that the world is a better place because I was in it.
The WIN network that you developed.
I
Can
love
you
that.
give a
Yeah.
little bit more information on that?
Yeah, no, I built this. I do it all for free for my friends.
Okay.
So I have 90 amazing individuals that invest by my side, and when we find a deal, I offer it to them if they want to come along with me, and then they jump in and help my companies grow. So it's like bringing an army to help. There's not just me. I have an army to come help you get better, and then we have fun. And it's just been one of the neatest things that I've ever done, and lots of fun and
So-
lots of impact.
So, how would an entrepreneur says, "Hey, Maynard, I think I have a lot to offer"? How would they get involved with you?
Reach out to my team. We get a lot of people that do, and we'll be happy to take a listen to your idea. And if we like it, maybe we'll fund it.
Been visiting here today with Maynard Webb, and we're talking about the book Dear Founder. The WIN Network, can you give a plug for how a person reaches out to you? And
Yes, the email alias is team@winfunding.com. TEAM@winfunding.com.
Maynard, it's been a pleasure having you here today on the
Thank
show.
you, Alan. My pleasure.